Safe to say most people agree that the news regarding Clippers owner Donald Sterling is offensive, to say the least. But now, reaction from our analysts, Jalen Rose, Doug Collins, and Bill Simmons. Jalen, what's the first thing that came to mind when you heard this news?
I'm not surprised. The most inept, irresponsible thing that an owner could possibly do. Number one, I think it has played out in the karma how this franchise has been handled over the past 30 years that he's owned the team. There's no coincidence that they've struggled, that they're the JV team in their own building. And I think it's because of his leadership. The things that he said were disrespectful. They were wrong. And I'm not saying that I'm going to blame it on the players or the coaching staff because they have the job to do. But if I'm a Clipper fan, I say, love this team, but dislike the organization and not necessarily support this gentleman moving forward. And me personally, I will not be going to any games or patronizing him in any way, shape, or form until they figure out what they're going to do with him as it relates to the ownership of that team, because he doesn't deserve it.
What do you think, Bill?
Short term, they have to make sure he doesn't come to any more playoff games until they figure this out. I just think it would be an incredible distraction, and it would be offensive to have him just sitting mid-court like nothing ever happened here. I wanted to see a little bit more from the Clipper players. I get it. They're caught in the playoffs. They're trying to stay focused, all that. But at the same time, this is a league that was built on guys like Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor. Race has always been an intertwining theme toward everything that's happened with this league. And to just kind of stick your heads in the sand and say, oh, well, we're going to let the process, like, you can't do that this time. I don't agree with that at all. And then the other thing, the league itself, like, look in the mirror a little bit. Like, don't just blame Donald Sterling for this. This is a guy they've kept around for 3+ decades. Chris Paul became available. They blocked the Laker trade. They sent him to the Clippers. They turned the Clippers into a marquee franchise that he owned. And they knew he was like this. So they got to take some accountability. They got to do the right thing. They got to figure out a way to get the team away from him.
Sage, I agree with you. We're all offended. I mean, there's absolutely no place in the NBA for this kind of behavior at all. And I think he should be suspended for the rest of the playoffs. I don't think he should be allowed to go watch and be a part of his team, especially a team that has championship aspirations. Now, the one thing when I look at this, I always talk about when you're in the playoffs, navigating the emotional waters of the playoffs, the highs and lows, the game to game. That's usually just about the games. Now the Clippers have this to factor in. And I think the Clippers fans, the NBA, we all should be very blessed that they have a man like Doc Rivers, who's going to be the guy who's going to speak. Now, Bill has talked about the players not speaking, but he will be the guy. He's incredibly smart. He's media savvy. And I think that he will do a great job.
He's already said some stuff.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, though, I just think they should be incredibly blessed that they have a coach like this to be able to deal with what this team is going to have to deal with, because on top of it, they got to try to go win basketball games now. Game 4, if they lose in Golden State tomorrow, what is the thought going to be? Because this happened, they lost. That's what's going to be said.
But their level of responsibilities from here on out. So how are the other owners going to handle this?
Yes.
How's the league going to deal with this? How are the fans and the media going to deal with this? More importantly, how are the players in the NBA going to deal with this? It's not just players on the Clippers team. He made some general blanket statements about a race and about minorities. And by the way, they were including Magic Johnson, who's only a Hall of Fame mogul.
Right.
And if he's not good enough to come to the games, then I guess none of us are good enough to come to the games.
Well, there's been a pattern of terrible behavior and racism. Nobody is surprised that this happened, so we might as well start there. But I just keep coming back to the fact that they can't get rid of this guy. I mean, they had a situation in Charlotte with George Shinn where the entire city turned against him for a variety of reasons, all these different scandals, and they couldn't get rid of him. And he ended up moving the team to New Orleans and basically killing basketball in Charlotte. You don't think they would have wanted to get rid of Donald Sterling 20 years ago? My problem is they entitled him, and then by pushing Chris Paul to him, it's almost like you're condoning the behavior. I think they should have been much more concentrated on trying to get rid of him.
But this isn't an isolated incident. In Major League Baseball, you saw they took a team away from Marshall. I think he should be on that path, and a lot of people should be standing in line making sure that path happens. With social media, with technology, people are smarter. You can't degrade and demean people.
You can mobilize better.
Correct. You can't call a team Redskins anymore and think the Native Americans are going to be happy. You can't do this type of behavior anymore. He deserves discipline and
once again, remember, we have to just make it clear there's an investigation going on right now. Nothing has been proven yet.
That's why we use purported.
Purported and alleged. Yes, but purported is the bigger word, apparently, we learned. But you mentioned this, and you all agree that short term he should be suspended for the rest of the playoffs.
I do.
Long term, you agree, right? So long term.
He does not deserve to be one of the 30 NBA owners anymore. This is not an isolated incident.
Because especially it's not the first time, and there's a long list of proof of that. Doug, Bill, long term, what do you say?
Well, I mean, I think that it's interesting to me. I was going to ask you guys about this. You know, all the things the patterns that have occurred in the past. I mean, he had a couple situations where he fired coaches and made them sue him to get their money.
Yeah.
I mean, so this has been
It's
coaches,
Steve.
been a lot of stuff. Okay.
Well, he's a real estate guy, and you just keep doing the lawsuits, you drag stuff along. This is what he does. I think it's going to be really, really hard to get rid of him, and also I think his identity is tied up in owning the team. If you think it's just going to be like, hey, go away, he's not going to be like, all right, guys, I'll see you later. Thanks for everything.
I have a question, though. I mean, how much of it did they allow him to stick around and own his team because he had such a horrible team before?
I think they would have tried to get rid of him.
I'm just saying. I mean, like they were the lovable losing Clippers. Keep him in charge. I mean,
Yeah,
these
but it's
other
LA though, Doug. Like, it's not good to have a bad team.
Yeah, but you had the Lakers. The Lakers were in their heyday.
I do think his relationship with Jerry Buss had a big factor in this, though. He did bankroll him a couple
But there are
times.
going to be a lot of people that want the athletes to take a stand and be socially and more politically conscious. The times have changed somewhat. You have to take a step
So
back.
just not play? And just stop playing in the middle of it?
No, just take a step back. When you have a tough decision, you don't make it with emotion.
Yeah.
Allow all of the information to play out first.
I agree.
Allow the season to play out first, and then you reevaluate it. Now, for the players that are on roster, under contract, that's business.
Yeah.
But moving forward, think you're going to get the random great player, the random free agent to come to LA to play under his leadership? That's not going to happen. That's where you're going to see the impact.
And the best short-term revenge, win the title, don't celebrate with him, keep him away from you.
1981 when Donald Sterling bought the Clippers, and in that time of the four North American professional sports, that franchise has been the worst, hands down,
Karma.
of all of them. We shall see how this plays out.
Please subscribe to the Grantland channel by clicking that huge button that says subscribe.